Welcome back to the Maximum Lawyer Podcast.
You're Jim Hacking.
Oh, sorry, I forgot. I've been doing too many. This is our fourth one today. Let me try that again. Thank you. Actually, we should just keep that. That would be good. Welcome back to the Maximum Lawyer Podcast. I'm Jim Hacking.
And I'm Tyson Mutrix. What's up, Jimmy?
Well, once again, I screwed up the intro, and surprisingly, you let me re-record it, so I appreciate that. How are you doing, man?
I'm good. That was funny. I don't know if you've ever done that where you just didn't say your name. You just said what it like. Welcome back to the Maximum Lawyer Podcast, and you just stopped. That was good. So,
I think I was having a brain fart.
yeah, that's good. No, I'm doing all right. What about you?
I'm great. You want to go ahead and introduce our guest?
I absolutely do. Our guest today is Margeaux Thomas, and Margeaux is an experienced lawyer and speaker with 15 plus years of experience representing individuals and small businesses in commercial and real estate litigation, including class action cases and numerous trials on behalf of both plaintiffs and defendants. We'll get into the rest of this in a little bit. Margeaux, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, before we go any further, though, so Margeaux is not spelled the normal way. It's Margeaux, which you might say is the normal way. Is it? Are you from Louisiana? Like where does the EAUX come from? That's fantastic. I love it.
It has a French origin, but I'm not. My parents just like the spelling, but it throws a lot of people off, believe me. People
I love the
mispronounce my
spelling.
name everywhere I go. So,
Well, Tyson's last name is Mutrux, so he probably gets a lot of the same mispronunciations that you do. Margeaux, why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey, where you started from as far as law school and where you are now?
well, first let me say, I started my firm in 2016, and this was one of the podcasts that I listened to when I started my firm, and I took so many tips from you guys. I feel like you guys are like the OGs.
Oh,
So I'm really
nice.
honored to be here, and there were so many things that you talked about back then that I implemented that I'm really happy that I did because it really changed my small firm over the years. So yeah, so I started my firm 8 years ago. And before that, I was practicing in a medium to big law firm with hundreds of attorneys and mainly representing banks, defending them in commercial litigation. And then, I just always felt like, there was something else behind the curtain and something else that I wanted to do. And I took a very big leap of faith, 8 years ago. And here we are. So.
I mean, how's it been? I just want to kind of check in. Like, what's the journey been like for you?
It has been amazing. I really like the business of law. And I didn't realize that. I had never run a business before. And, there's such a learning curve from working for somebody in a big firm where you don't have to deal with the marketing or the HR or the management or none of that was second nature to me. And, I felt like there was so much of a community that I wasn't even aware of until I, went out on my own. And there were so many people who were like, here's this resource and talk to this person. And I just feel like I never would have experienced that, type of community had I not, switched gears a little bit and went a different direction. And, I hear people say they go back into a law firm because they hate these things, but I really enjoy them. I feel like it's interesting. It's, thought provoking, it's very challenging. And, I feel like the practice of law is one thing, but the business of running a law practice is a whole nother thing. And you either love it or you hate it. And, I think I'm fortunate enough that I got out here and I really like that piece of it. So,
What were the discussions that you had with yourself before you actually went out on your own? And then what did you think those first 10 days after you started your firm? What were you thinking?
I had a lot of mental back and forth about whether I could do this. And I originally was going out with a partner who was in the firm that I was at. And right before I was supposed to start, he dropped out and said he couldn't do it and he was staying. And at that point, I was like, I'm not sure if I can do this on my own. So that was a big part of it. And whether I had the confidence, whether I could do it, I just catastrophized the whole thing as to I'm going to be like desolate and homeless and jobless and, no money. And my husband was just like, listen, you can just get another job. Like, it's not that big of a deal. It's not the end of the world if it doesn't work out, pivot. So, just stop, over catastrophizing the situation. So that was certainly the thought process going into it. And then, I just had to take a look in the mirror and tell myself a lot of positive affirmations that I could do it. And then it was crazy. Like after I was like, I really quit my job and I really liked my job and it was a very lucrative job. And I was sitting at my dining room table, like, I have no job and I don't know. I didn't have a lot of clients. I didn't have a book of business. I was like, this could have been the worst decision, but I was there at that point and it's, sink or swim. So, it worked out.
How long did it take to get your feet under you where you're to the point where like, okay, I can do this. This is okay. Like I mean, did it hit right away or did it take some time? Talk about that a little bit.
A few days after I quit, one of the biggest cases that I was working on, that client decided to come with me. And I didn't know that was going to happen until I left. In fact, I was just like, yeah, I'm leaving everything because these aren't my clients. But they were like, we want to continue to work with you. And that made my first year. That one client, that one case made my first year. And those people were, small business owners who had, built a franchise, that was very successful. But I think they saw a little bit of themselves when they started in me, which I'm very fortunate for. I didn't know that they were going to do that at all. But, it really changed the trajectory of that first year. And it gave me some time to reach out to my network and build a pipeline. And, I was just really fortunate that that happened. So, that one case, and then, just telling everybody that I knew, this is what I do. If you know anybody who needs it. And at that point, I would literally take any case. So it didn't even matter. I mean, I would drive an hour to speak to somebody to get a case because I didn't have a lot of boundaries as far as I just wanted to bring in money. I wanted to bring in cases. I figured I'd figure it out. So at that point, I would take anything, and I was telling anybody I would take anything, and people would call me, and I would take the cases.
What areas of practice have you focused on?
So I consider myself a business divorce lawyer. So that's what I do. We do business divorces. Businesses that are breaking up. There are a lot of small family-owned businesses, you know, partners, spouses, children, a lot of family disputes that unfortunately, there's some larger communication issue or personality dispute that is causing them to go their separate ways. So we help them sort that out and move forward and purchase the rest of the business or sell their part of the business and move forward. So that's what I do.
Have you given a thought to maybe like in the next 10 years, like what that looks like, 20 years, the shape of the firm? I'm just curious how far you've dreamt and how far you've gotten into that goal.
So I think the future looks like me moving out of the legal work, the day to day, and really focusing more on the management and the growth of the firm and the retaining talent, finding talent, training talent, that type of thing, marketing the firm, because those are the things that I've really grown to love a lot, and I thought. I really had an internal conflict about that for a long time because, I like practicing law, but I really do enjoy the business side of things. And, I'd like to I've had younger lawyers who have, started here and went to law school, and I'd like to see them grow, with the firm, and I want to be a part of that. And I just want to kind of hone those leadership skills so that I can, build a firm that I love, that, other people can prosper in.
I really like your niche, and I'm wondering, content wise, it just seems something that would be really uh, amenable to content that regular people could consume. I mean, just the idea of business divorce, to me, you summed up your entire practice in 2 days, in 2 words. And I just think that, you could keep an eye out on news stories about business breakups. I think that you could tell your own stories. What kind of content creation strategy have you had around that? Because I just think there's probably stuff in the news every day.
Well, I do a lot on LinkedIn. That is our major platform. So we post a lot there about, situations that people find themselves in and how to
Mm.
navigate that and the emotional part of it. Because a lot of these people have underlying relationships. They've known, they've been friends since grade school, and then they decided to go out on their own and they built a very successful business, but they can't get past this roadblock with their partner. So our whole platform is talking about, what it feels like to go through that situation and the tools that are out there and resources and just to tell people, we've understand, we're business owners, we've been there, this is what we help people with. So
So given your experience where you with what you do, and then also you were about to partner with someone and then they decided not to do it. I do wonder, have you given any thought to maybe adding a partner at some point? And then also on top of that, what advice would you give to people considering partnering up with someone else? I'm really curious what your advice would be.
I think that I would partner with someone at this point. I mean, I like the autonomy of not having a partner. I realize that about myself. And, I love the personality test. I'm a very high D, like, when it comes to disc and the dominant profile. So, I enjoy that and I understand that about myself. And I don't honestly want to share that with anybody, but I do want to grow the firm and bring in people who can prosper in this environment. So for me, I don't think, I think that that worked out in my favor. At the time, it didn't seem that way, but after years of reflecting on that, I think that was the best possible thing that could have happened because it made me develop a lot more self confidence in what I could do that I might not have been able. Who knows what would have happened if we had went forward, but um, and I just had somebody contact me yesterday and they're like, I'm considering a partnership. What would you say? You deal with all the ones that fail, so you should have a great idea. I was like, it's very much like a regular marriage. Like, I could write the prenup for you and get all the legal stuff in order, but like, you need to go to premarital counseling. You need to talk about the financial things. Like, do you want to grow it? Do you want to pocket the distribution? Like, are you guys have the same risk tolerance? Because, those are things that come up in every marriage that create people going through divorces. It's the exact same thing, especially in family businesses or spouses that go out of business or really good friends. They have the exact same issues that you have in your marriage that, you just feel like you're not heard. You feel like you're alone. You feel like you're doing it all. Like those are the same things that people repeat in a real marriage. So my advice to them is, yes, get an operating agreement. That's going to help you. Or, there are ways to, protect yourself financially in this situation. Get a prenup, yes. But you really need to figure out whether you like this person, whether you can work with this person. And, that's going to determine, you can have a very successful business, but hate each other. And, that can affect your mindset and a lot of other things that cause you to be very unhappy in this business situation. So I tell people there's a lot of business coaches out there who can talk both of you through that process of getting to know whether you are on the same page before you go into this marriage, this business marriage together.
So Jim is a big believer in like the Colby score. Like, would you recommend, because you mentioned DISC, I mean, would you recommend potential partners doing some sort of testing before they get involved in a partnership?
Absolutely. I told, that I had the exact conversation yesterday because I was like, I know I'm a high D, and if I were to meet my husband took this too, because I'm a huge proponent, he's an S and a C, right? We balance each other very well. And if you are both very high Ds, and that tends to be the person who goes out and starts their own law firm, there can be a lot of conflict there with, law firm, solos coming together because they both have this very dominant trait and want to do things their way. So yes, I think that's a conversation starter for, a lot of things.
I'm wondering if you've had any situations involving law firms in particular, whether there are things that you've learned in those cases involving law firms, because I would think that just like lawyers can be extra nasty to their spouses when they go through a marital divorce, that's probably true in a business divorce. So what advice do you have for everybody who might find themselves in a partnership they're not so happy about?
Yes, I've certainly had law firm breakups, and those tend to be even more contentious because there are lawyers involved. So they say that lawyers make the worst clients. I wouldn't say that about the ones that I've represented some great lawyers, but they want to be involved in all the details, and even if it's not their practice area, it just makes it very contentious and difficult. And those are particularly difficult, I will say, to unwind, even if the financial part is not difficult. There's a lot of emotional, but there's just a lot of emotional issues that have to be worked through. And I think that I've represented people in all different fields, doctors and lawyers, and they have a lot. Like I said, they have a lot of the same traits. There are a lot of different things, creative things that people can do to hurt each other. But in all of these cases, the underlying issue is, this is a business decision. And I know you know this person and I know there's some emotion involved, but this isn't about your children. This is about money. And this is about a business. And you have to put on the same hat that you put on to come into this business, to make it successful, to get out of this business, and try to just get them to focus on that aspect.
Yeah. Some of the advice I got was before partnering was a couple things like don't expect to be friends with them after the partnership ends. That was one thing, and then always when you draft your operating agreement, you make sure that you do it with the end in mind. So I don't know if that's good advice or bad advice. I know that's good. That's advice that I received. But if you were to go back to 2016, would you have done anything differently from how you've done it? And if so, what advice would you give yourself?
I hired sooner. I did a lot. I did everything, everything on my own for a very long time. And I was listening to some of your podcasts about no unscheduled phone calls. I used to answer the phone. People call and I'm the first person on the phone. Like, how can I help you? There's no consult fee. There's no anything. I was like, why am I doing this? I gotta stop doing this. But, I did that for a long time. And I think that if I had put some of those things in place, the process in place a little bit earlier, um, it would have saved me. I worked way too much. I mean, I was doing the business of law. I was doing the law. I was working weekends. I was working, holidays, vacations, weekends, and that wasn't good for my mental health. I had two small kids. I have twins. They were two at the time I started this firm. It wasn't good for my marriage. It wasn't good for my kids. I mean, I learned a lot doing that's not sustainable. So I think that if I had put more faith in my ability to build a team earlier on, I could have taken some of those things off of my plate earlier.
So what do the next couple of years look like? What's your plan? What are you going to do as far as developing more business or growing and stepping away from some of the practice? What are your goals?
Bring in some more A team members. Work very closely with my recruiter to find some great talent, train them, retain them, and spend some time working on marketing, which is really what I love to do.
We've been talking about A players quite a bit, and we've mentioned on the podcast quite a bit lately too. But I do have noticed a little bit that sometimes the not so A players think that they're A players, which makes it a little bit more difficult in the hiring process. And so there's like the salary expectations and things like that whenever they're applying. We have seen sort of a weird phenomenon going on right now. But I wonder. What's it like for you for hiring? Because like with it's interesting because like PI for us, it's just weird. It's just a different. I feel like this is just a different breed of attorney that wants to be a PI lawyer versus like a criminal defense lawyer versus like real estate. So I wonder what the market is like for you all in hiring, and if you find it to be like good market right now, bad market. What are your thoughts?
It's a good market right now, but I just think hiring in general is so difficult. It is so difficult. I mean, I've hired so many people that were like, I want to be a paralegal, and then they get in there and then they're in law school in 2 months. And I was like, and they're leaving. And I was like, I asked that question 5 times during the interview, and you're like, no, I'm a career paralegal. And you're at the same time filling out your law school LSAT and all that, so it's very hard. And people, change their minds, and they're multifaceted. They have a lot of needs, and, just, dealing with people is a very difficult part of, keeping them happy and, giving them what they want, and, allowing them to feel heard is a huge part of the process, and figuring out who is a good fit and quickly so that you can get them out of there if they're not a great fit, which is something that is a mistake that I've made, kept people that I knew that were not a good fit way too long because I just didn't want to, have the hard conversations. So, yeah, I think it's a good market. I'm optimistic. I have a recruiter that I work with very closely, and I'm optimistic that we'll bring in some great talent this year, and we'll see what happens. But I'm trying to look at it optimistically, so we'll see.
Do you do much for referrals, like from attorneys or from maybe the attorneys that work on, setting up these companies? Does any business come that way?
Absolutely. We get a lot of referrals because a lot of people don't want to touch these type of cases, or, they're just transactional attorneys. One of the first attorneys I met when I started this firm was like, I do transactional law. I don't want to go to court. I was like, we are match made in heaven. Great. And he sent me so much business. And I don't know what he was doing with those cases before he met me, but it worked out very well for me when I was starting my firm. So yes, I try to align myself with a lot of transactional attorneys who are in small firms, who, set up businesses, and, those businesses, they call them back and say, I have a contract dispute, or I have a dispute with my partner or vendor or client. And we take those cases, and it is a great referral relationship.
I love it. All right, so we are getting up against time, so I'm gonna start to wrap things up. There's something about you, Margot. I just like talking to you. You're just like so pleasant and to talk to. So I love it, and I like to have I like to have people on that are not in the same practice area sometimes, so we can we mix it up. So it's really cool. I agree with Jim. I think it's a very good niche. So that's awesome. But I'm gonna wrap things up. Before I do, I want to remind everyone, if you want to join us in the guild, we would love to have you. Go to maxlawguild.com. If you've not yet joined the big Facebook group, do that. That's free. Just search Maximum Lawyer on Facebook and you'll be able to join us there. And if you've gotten something from this episode or any of our other episodes, if you give us a 5-star review, we would greatly appreciate it. Jimmy, what is your hack of the week?
I was listening to Benjamin Hardy talk the other day, and he mentioned a book, and the name of the book is Already Free. And it's about the intersection of psychotherapy and Buddhism. And my therapist is Buddhist and my coach is Buddhist. And so to get that book from a totally sideways way, I feel like I'm understanding the work that we've been doing together so much more fully and differently. And so my therapist was teasing me like, now you got the playbook, now you know what I'm doing. But the explanations of why you go to therapy in the first half of the book are probably the best distillation of the value of therapy that I've come across. And so I'm just like a third through the book, but I'm really enjoying it.
I like it. You love that therapy, baby. You're all in on it. All right, Margot. So I'm going to put you on the spot in a second. So I'm going to give you a second to think about it. In a second, I'm going to ask you what your favorite episode has been or topic of one of the episodes. So just give you a second to think about it. But before we get to that, and by the way, if you can't come up with something, we'll cut that part out. But if someone wants to get a hold of you, let's say that they're thinking about a partnership or getting out of a partnership and they want to consult with you, what's the best way of reaching out to you?
ThomasLawPLC.com is our website. 703-957-2577 is our phone number. So give us a call, or there's a ton of resources on our website and ways to contact us.
Cool. We'll put that in the show notes too, so that people don't have to write so fast. All right. So before we get to your tip or hack of the week, do you have like a favorite episode? I'm just curious because you've been listening to like for a long time. So can you think of one?
I honestly think it was the no unscheduled phone calls, and, just putting a barrier between myself and, just being interrupted constantly. And that extended to emails, just turning off that dinging email so that every time an email comes in, you don't react and get distracted. And, that was a huge shift for me because, when I was in a big firm, the phone would ring at my desk, right? But it was very different than going out on your own and, everybody having your number and potential clients calling. I mean, we were representing banks, so, it wasn't like my phone was ringing all day. So it took me a little bit. I heard that episode and I definitely was like, I need a call service or an intake person or something so that I can focus on the deeper work. And I really think I still do that today. I don't even have a phone that rings on my desk anywhere.
Love it.
I like that.
I love it. All right. Do you have a tip or a hack for us?
So a book, Domestic Assistant Advantage, that I read a while ago. It's by Steve Riley, who started Atticus. And, I just having someone, when I was in my law firm, I spent a lot of time in the firm, and I was like, my kids, I couldn't keep up with their, dress down days and bring this to school day and blah, blah, blah. And just hiring someone just as a personal assistant to deal with all that calendaring has allowed me to expand my reach, and I can be on boards and I can coach a team and I can make sure that my kids are in the right outfit when they get to school because I have somebody who deals with all those details, which I was completely not able to do. So just having that domestic assistant, not a legal assistant, but somebody who just deals with the personal stuff has been a game changer for me.
I like that. That's a really good one. All right, we get to my tip of the week. Jim, do you like to save money?
I do.
Okay. So I don't know if you've been on this. I'm sure a lot of people have heard this, but something I had not thought about until fairly recently is using Temu for office supplies. You can get super cheap stuff on Temu for I'm talking like super dirt cheap. So before you go and buy something for your office, whether it's equipment, it could be a power cable, whatever, like you name it, go to Temu first, and you like something that might cost you like $20 on Amazon is like $2 on Temu. It might take you a couple weeks to get it, but I'm telling you, it is a way like saving like a lot of money. So just just my 2 cents, TEMU. But Margot, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. It was definitely a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. Appreciate
Bye,
Bet.
Margot. Thanks.
it.